And welcome into Viewpoint. I'm Joe Paris. Doug Petcash has the week off. Since 1996, the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights has called the state of Idaho home, and the goal at inception, constructing a physical tribute to human rights and the importance of being vigilant. And that vision became a reality when the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial opened to the public here in Boise in 2002. The memorial is a world-class educational park inspired by Anne Frank's faith and humanity, a living, vibrant, interactive classroom. And etched in the stone of the Idaho Anne Frank's Human Rights Memorial, Bill Wassmuth, the namesake, he proclaims saying yes to human rights is the best way to say no to prejudice and bigotry. And the memorial is a special place not only in our community, but in the entire country. And organizers at the Wassmuth Center will tell you headlines in recent days, weeks, and years. It only reminds us that there's much more to be done in the goal here. So joining us today on Viewpoint, the movers and shakers that make the Wassmuth Center tick. Joining us here this morning, Dan Prinzing, the outgoing executive director. We'll talk about that coming up in a minute. And then Don Murray, the president of the board there for the Wassmuth Center. And I think for starters, with our area growing so much in recent years, let's just talk about what is the Wassmuth Center and what does it do here?
So, Joe, as you have hit, the Wassmuth Center is the builder and the home of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial. And by mission, we are an education center devoted to taking the message of the memorial into broader spaces. How do we share those values, those concepts, the themes that are etched in the stone in classrooms, in communities throughout the state of Idaho?
And it's also extremely unique because in terms of Anne Frank memorials, there's only one in the United States right here in Boise.
That's absolutely right. We're very honored to have that status, and it's also a prompter for a lot of conversation as people visit us here in Idaho. They wonder, why is that?
And that's a good question. I'll ask you, Dan, why is the only Anne Frank memorial in the United States here in Boise?
I like to say that it is a reflective of our history. It is our story. You know, we've had a lot of visitors over the year that have come, well, come build one of these in our town. And I always tell them, find your own story. This one is ours with it. In other words, its significance. We have to go back into our history. You know, in the late 70s, early 80s, an Aryan compound in North Idaho. In the early 90s, an anti-LGBTQ initiative on the ballot. Well, these were all precursors to an exhibit coming to Boise called Anne Frank in the World. And the organizers of that exhibit felt that there was something in Anne's story that would resonate. And really it is her hope for humanity. And it was that exhibit in '95 that planted the seeds for building the memorial.
And I think you touched on something. It's not just, oh, it's a nice place to have it, it's along the Greenbelt. There's a lot of meaning in why the Anne Frank Memorial is here. And when you talk to people that you come and visit, you know, what does it mean to you to have it here in Boise?
Well, it means an awful lot, and it doesn't just mean a lot for our mission for education and to try to help people understand the golden rule of how we should treat each other, but it means an awful lot for Idaho. It means a lot for our business community. The memorial is one of the most visited places in Boise and in Idaho when people come here. And that's important because our economic development institutions and many other companies use it for that purpose. They want people to feel welcomed when they come to Idaho, and that's important for our future.
And of course, it would depend on every individual person you talk to. But for example, when my family came to Boise, Idaho to visit me for the first time, the first place my mother wanted to go to was the Anne Frank Memorial. And, you know, we talked about that on the drive over. But Dan, when you talk to people over the years, why are they drawn to this place?
It's unexpected. And so they want to discover in this way. I got to lead into that. I said, if I were ever having a bad day in the office, I would read the reviews on TripAdvisor as people had discovered this space. So once again, it wasn't unexpected, but as I like to believe, it is a true symbol of who we are as a people. That whatever reputation may have been garnered over the decades, that this is really a statement of our values, our statement of this is who we are in Boise, in Idaho, this is what we hold dear. And I think that becomes a draw.
And it doesn't hurt that it isn't just a gorgeous spot. I mean, sometimes, you know, depending on the weather, it can be a little nicer, but I mean, it's just a spot that you'll see people eating lunch at, having conversations, and it really just feels like a center of the community. It
really is the center of the community. We were very fortunate when the memorial was built that we were on the Greenbelt, central to downtown, in the arts district of Boise. It just seemed to fit, and we're next to the library. That's a place of education, and so I think that the way that the memorial was built It was built to be a park, a place where people can come and reflect, meditate perhaps, and read the wonderful quotes that we have throughout the memorial, which in and of themselves are lessons.
I always like to take it one step further because I regularly tease the mayor. Not only are we located in the heart of the city, we are the heart of the city.
Yeah, and I think she might even agree with you. Maybe not other staff at City Hall. But so it's growing, though, and we're going to see some more stuff coming up. I know the capital campaign is something we follow closely here at KTVB. Tell me, what does it look like right now?
We have topped 5.3 million. The goal, 6.2. So we're in the glide path. We've got to raise another 900,000 within the next 11 months. It's been a long campaign. We initiated this right before we went into an international pandemic. And so it has been a project that has faced supply chain issues, cost escalation, but what we have also recognized is vast support from the community, individuals, businesses, foundations throughout the Northwest that are now telling us, let's get her done.
And I know very recently there was some ground broken, of course, a tribute to Phil Batt, the governor of Idaho.
Yep.
Tell me, what is this capital campaign looking to accomplish?
Well, what we're hoping to accomplish is to, first and foremost, establish the new education center. It'll become our home base. It'll give us much needed office space as well as an opportunity to start and end our numerous docent-led tours. And that's really important for us because we haven't had that kind of opportunity in the past. We've really operated with the memorial as our classroom space. Now that we'll be able to have programming that'll be indoors, and we think that the building will become kind of an icon for Boise, and it'll become very popular, not just for us, but for other companies that may want to bring diversity, equity, inclusion programs and use our space. But it's also going to be a bit of an art museum. And that's not something that we planned, but that's something that happened, and Dan can share more about that.
Okay, we'll talk about it. A little bit of art museum action.
We've got 20 original commissioned pieces that help to tell the story of human rights. You know, for many folks, human rights are an abstract. What are they? Well, art helps to tell that story. It takes a concept and it gives it a face. And so that's just a piece that has evolved throughout the campaign. Idaho has an amazing collection of artists, and as those have stepped forward, and we've looked at not only the broad diversity of the pieces, but the artists themselves, and so now 20 pieces that will become a story as you begin to wander through the building. We know in time we will have as many docent-led tours of the building to come see the art as we do in the memorial.
And we're just showing the viewers at home right now some of the gorgeous renderings that we'll expect to be a reality soon. And, you know, speaking of making this a reality, tomorrow, Monday, I guess that's a big milestone. What's happening on Monday?
It is major. The project is resuming. We moved a water line last fall. Tomorrow, it's the moving of the geothermal line. The building will be heated with that geothermal, but this is the real kickoff now. As soon as that line is moved in full excavation, we're talking an 11-month project.
Wow. Don, what are you most excited for as part of this project?
Well, I've been excited just to be a part of it. It's been a very rewarding experience for me. Dan and I, as we've gone through this campaign, have realized that there's a reason that the word fun is in fundraising. And we have found that anyone that we talk to gets excited about this project. Our challenge has been we can't talk to everybody in the state. So we enjoy the opportunity to spread the word that we're in that glide path that Dan mentioned, that we still have a little ways to go in the fundraising, but once this building is here, I think that it's going to just be a game changer. It'll allow for our center and our important mission and education to really rise to new levels, meet the demand of what the community is asking us to do as far as advocacy for human rights. And I think it's just going to lead to even more exciting times.
Because the tough reality is there's been headlines in recent weeks and months and years here in Idaho, here in the Boise area, that it shows this is why we need it. So it seems perfect that it's ready to be built, and it's not just about the building; it's about the lessons for future Idahoans.
Very much so. You know, and to that point, Joe, we've had a lot of individuals and businesses that have come to us and say, "We want our name on that building. This is who we are. This represents what we stand for as a family or as a company." And so, literally, as we've teased off, this is a building being built on donor recognition. As many have come to, and this is part of their own legacy. This is what they want to leave behind. And that's what we recognize, and what I so appreciate, our contractor recognizes, it's not just a building. It's what it embodies. It's the represent. Our architect, Ørsted Architects, literally designed it to be a beacon of light in times of darkness. Now that's a great phrase with it, but literally the building, it's how light will emanate from or enter into. I mean, it is that whole, what it will become right there on the Greenbelt, right in the heart of the city. As I like to say, it's a one-of-a-kind education center in the footprint of a one-of-a-kind human rights memorial.
And it's also, you mentioned all the buy-in from the community. It's not just like, okay, well, we're one board, we're one group, we're going to do this because we want to. You get the buy-in from the whole community, and to me that shows like, okay, we're committed here. It's not one group. We're all in on this.
Yeah. We do, and I have a lot of opportunity to be out in the community in my professional role, and it's remarkable how often I'm approached by people who want to talk about what we're doing at the Wassmuth Center, why it's important to them, what we represent to them. And it's just an amazingly gratifying thing. I recently learned that while Idaho tragically has a reputation for hate that it is not deserving of, the truth is that statistically, we are really not one of the worst states with regard to a reputation for hate. We're one of the better states. And I think that what needs to happen is that we need to find a way to amplify that reality, that truth about who we are as Idahoans. And I hope that our mission and our work going forward will help with that.
Well, we have to take a real quick break. Don Murray, thank you for joining us here. He's going to step aside. In our next segment, we're going to introduce you to one of the new leaders over at the Wassmuth Center. Who could it be? Well, Viewpoint continues right after this.
Hunger Root is here.
I'm gonna open the box, and my refrigerator is packed.
At California Closets, every project is a personalized experience. Custom designed, built, and installed by true craftsmen. We create exactly what you want, so your home office finally works for you. And the family room brings everyone together, even with the TV off. That's the California Closet's difference. We call it practical magic. Start your experience with a free design consultation.
You've been counting the days, weeks, months, just waiting for the Memorial Day Super Sale at Denver Mattress. Right now, the more you buy, the more you save. Save $100 on every $1,000 you spend. And check out the Summit Firm for only $299.99. Or save up to $500 on select Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress sets and get a free $300 gift. Plus 6 years no interest and free shipping. The Memorial Day Super Sale on now at Denver Mattress.
What should we do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
Welcome back to Viewpoint. We are diving into stories and insight from leaders of the Wassmuth Center here in Boise. Their mission there, of course, addressing the need for human rights education as the need for education grows with every new generation of Idaho children. And joining us now, Christina Bruce Benyon. You're going to be the incoming executive director at the Wassmuth Center. Of course, Dan Prinzing, you'll be retiring, but not completely leaving the organization. But let's start with you, Christina. Joining this as the executive director. Tell me a little bit about your work. I know you did a lot of work in human rights.
I did. I really worked in the Valley in refugee resettlement for many, many years. And I think for me, coming to the Wassmuth Center now, having worked with people who came here as refugees because their human rights were not protected where they came from, makes the idea of human rights less abstract. And I feel really, excited and committed to how do we continue through education to make sure that we are all working to protect human rights.
Because I really think that's a great tie-in. It seems like the Wassmuth Center is a natural fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, and I've admired the Wassmuth Center, as a longtime resident of the community, and often have gone to the memorial. I'm kind of a word nerd, and so all of the, the quotes and the inspiration that I have gotten personally from the memorial. So I feel super honored to, to be able to step into this role and continue the work of the center. So.
Well, you can only, only what you're comfortable sharing on television, but what have the conversations been between the two of you like, leading into this new role and kind of getting ready for a big task?
Yeah, I mean, technically, I've been in the role for several months now, and we early on had kind of talked about, how do we do this handoff, and Dan has been amazingly gracious and a huge resource, and in sort of trying to find this way to work together and staying on to help with the building, and it's been, the staff has been super welcoming, the board has been really supportive, and just really appreciated the ability to really sort of work, kind of as partners through this transition time. So I've been grateful for that.
What's it like for you, Dan, kind of stepping away and, working with new leadership and kind of, starting this new generation?
I think that is the key, a new generation, and I think it's the excitement that comes with that. I'll echo what Christina has said, really finding a partner who understands the work and will carry it forward. Dan is not the arbiter of all ideas, and to recognize that it's time for new leadership. It's time for that change. Now, I have a luxury that Christina is allowing me to continue in a volunteer status to see the building to completion. And for me now, just to focus on that capital campaign and the construction of the building, what a wonderful cap to a career. Joe, I've often thought, the education theorist John Dewey said, education is not preparation for life, education is life. Well, as I told Christina early, or shared early in the hiring process, Executive Director of the Wassmuth Center is a complete way of life. It's not just a job. It is that passion. And to find someone, with that background in the community, the connection in the community, but also that brings that passion to the work.
And for you, I mean, you've been living this for, what, 16, 17 years now?
Yes. Joined the center in 2007, but I actually first got connected when that Anne Frank exhibit came to Boise in 1995.
Was it just real quick, it got your attention, you knew this was a place for you?
It was. I'm a career educator. So after a couple of decades in the classroom, and then I worked for Dr. Marilyn Howard when she was state superintendent of public instruction. When she retired from public office, I resigned and we both came to the center. I came in at that time as education director and she on the board of directors, because we knew this was the place where the work could continue. This was where the values that we held so dear, the work that had, literally a lot of it had started at the State Department of Ed, we knew this is where it could now continue in added growth.
And what about the work of Bill Wassmuth? Because I know that it had to inspire you.
Yes. And often we say, and we did not become the Wassmuth Center until 2014. We went through a name change with it. And when we really looked at what is the qualifier that sets us apart, it was, Bill's widow granting us the rights to the family name, it's his life. It's his story. It's how he stood up in the face of evil. And so we often reference, what are the lessons we learned from Bill? When his home was bombed, he didn't shrink away. He got louder. When he stood in a peace park in downtown Coeur d'Alene, and the audience picked it up as a chance. Human rights, the way to say no to bigotry and prejudice. Those are the lessons, and that becomes our inspiration.
And for you, I guess, how do you, continue this? Because there is pressure. I mean, it's a big job you're stepping into and that you're already in.
It is. Well, and I think it's such this special place, as you all were talking about in the first segment. It is this unique, beautiful place in the heart of our community and our state. And, for me, I think what's what's been so amazing to see already in the time that I've been here is, one, how many amazing people are supportive and connected and involved and care so deeply. And then I think there's already so much, there are great resources and there's already so much that the center has developed. And I think what's exciting is to think about how do we, continue to build on that and how do we take it maybe a little further afield around the state. And I've been thinking a lot about, when, the work that we do is, of course, human rights education, but ultimately it's really about creating communities that are committed to belonging, right, and hope. And so I think how do we, continue to really take that out and I think be a part of countering, some of the small vocal, efforts that are really sowing some division and fear around the state, and how can we be a part of countering that with I think, again, that message of sort of what do we aspire to and who are we, and the center and the memorial, I think will just, and especially with the new building coming on, will be so exciting in the way that I think it will really embody the work that we do. So I'm really just excited for those opportunities and to continue to grow the work of the center.
Well, we've seen the community rally, at the Anne Frank Memorial at the Wassmuth Center for years, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's in very dark times we'll see the community get there. And Dan, as you look back on your career there and everything you've gone through at the Wassmuth Center, what moments, what events stick out to you as a moment where, wow, that was really special?
Yeah, and to your point, Joe, with it's sad that we have to recall some of the horror, some of the darkness of the past. But in 2017, when the memorial was defaced with racist and anti-Semitic language, I think it was almost a point where we'd become complacent with the importance of this space. And then to watch how the community reacted, what that meant and how they reacted. I recall it, and we had a national reporter who after the event called and she said, so is this who and what Boise is? And that one hurt because she wanted to take us back to that stain of an Aryan compound. And my only response at the time was watch and listen to how a community responds. And the overwhelming support, that's when we really recognize not only the value of the space, but what it meant in the hearts and in the homes throughout the valley. Couple that with then the swastikas that were plastered in the memorial in 2020. And it really was inspired by a community standing together where we crafted the We Are Everywhere campaign. Not the threat that was on the swastikas, but the reality that love and justice and compassion, respect. Of course, we were in the pandemic at that point, but even as I was wandering through my own neighborhood and I would see the yard signs that said, We Are Everywhere, I said, okay, maybe love isn't everywhere, but I know it's there. It's in that home, and it's in that home. And it's what we began to realize throughout the state. And that's, as Christina has hit on, that's where we know we have to embolden the voices of good to drown out the voices of hate.
For me, in the year 2020, and when I go through news clips, and now 2020 was a difficult year for a lot of people, and specifically here in Boise, we had a lot of change and a lot of protests and a lot of serious conversations. But when I look through video from 2020, the community coming together, the moments, they're all at the Anne Frank Memorial. All the video here on Channel 7 of these great moments, it's at your center. What does that mean to just physically be able to watch that and say, we are the beacon of hope here?
That is exactly the point, and it takes us in the new building. There will be one quote that faces into the memorial. A short one from Anne Frank's diary, there is hope. And that is what the memorial has represented, and that's what the work of the Wassmuth Center is about. Being that place of hope, that even in these times of darkness, even in those moments will not define who we are. We are better than this, and always calling for our better angels. And I think to your point, how often the community will rally at the memorial because it's what it represents. And what are they saying? It's also who they represent.
Well, we're short on time. I wish we could go for another hour, but before we do go away, I just want to ask, construction starting Monday, to you, the future is bright. Tell me, what are your goals as we get going here?
Gosh, I mean, I think, we've talked a little bit, but I really think that the building being connected to the memorial and really embodying the work that we can do, finally having a space where we can invite the community in, and I hope continue to welcome people from all around the world, and ultimately, I think, really be a part part of that, that voice that creates that, the idea of hope and that we are better than these darker moments. And just really exciting. It's an exciting time to finally have that place that I think will maybe also cement for people like the connection and the work that the center does. And just really looking forward to, to building and seeing what opportunities we can create.
Okay, well, I'm promising now we're going to have everybody back for another episode because there's a lot more we could dive into. But for today, that's all the time we have. Thank you to the both of you for your time here this morning, and thank you, Dan, for everything you've done and continue to do for this community. Of course, it's going to be a beautiful weekend, so maybe a lot of people hitting the Anne Frank Memorial out on the Greenbelt. But we're going to step aside. We're going to wrap up Viewpoint right after this break.
Hey, I'm Brian Gary, and today we're talking about the biggest misconception there is about replacement windows. I'm here with Ted Coons, the project manager for Renewal by Andersen, to talk about it.
Yeah, one of the big things we hear from homeowners is, I shouldn't need to replace my windows, they're just not that old. But here's the thing, home builders put in high-end kitchens and bathrooms and low-end windows that just aren't that good. So even if your windows are only 7 to 10 years old, they may still need to be replaced.
Ted, there's so many window companies out there. What's different about your company?
Well, besides being the full-service replacement window division of Andersen, we're the company people tend to call when they're particular about their home. They don't want just any old window or any old installer.
So your standards for installers are pretty high, right?
Yeah, Brian, you could have the best window or door in the world, and if it's not installed correctly, it's going to fail. So we don't hire these jack-of-all-trades installers that do gutters and siding on the side. Our window installation teams do our windows year in, year out, and have done thousands of them.
Anytime a homeowner has to deal with multiple home improvement companies, they get stuck in the blame game.
Yeah, with other companies, if there's an issue, the manufacturer blames the installer blames the manufacturer. With us, there's no finger pointing or blaming each other. We're both the installer and the manufacturer.
Ted, is it easy for a homeowner to get a price?
Very easy. We'll come out to your house, we'll assess your current patio door or windows, and then we'll give you an exact price that's good for an entire year.
Ted, that's great information. Thank you.
Before May 31st, save 20% on windows and save 20% on patio doors. Save an extra $1,000 on your entire project. Plus, make no payments and pay no interest for 1 year. This offer ends May 31st. For a free appointment with Renewal by Andersen, scan the code or call 208-427-8900. That's 208-427-8900.
Well, we will put this episode of Viewpoint to bed. Boy, did these fly by really quickly. There's a lot, though, that's going on at the Wassmuth Center. And if you wanted to read more about the new building, maybe see those renderings up close, or kind of just learn about their capital campaign, you can go to our website right now at ktvb.com, and you can find all the latest on the Wassmuth Center and everything they're doing there. Of course, with the beautiful weather coming up here, go check it out. If you've never been to the Anne Frank Memorial, just off the Greenbelt, beautiful place to go visit with your family. Well, that's all we got for you for this week on Viewpoint. I really appreciate you joining us. I'm Joe Paris in for Doug Petcash. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.